plant some tomatoes. I started these in March. Clearly, they've grown. What I've been doing is I'd been waiting until our nighttime temperatures weren't getting to freezing, and so this past weekend we had some temperatures dipping down into like 32, 33. I would rather bring these guys in and out of my deck each night and morning versus having planted them all throughout the garden and having to cover them. Today I decided to plant it out because it's going to be a high of 60. It's pretty overcast, so for the next 2 weeks it doesn't look like our temperatures are going to get into the 30s. They might be in the high 40s, mid 40s for our nighttime lows, which tomatoes don't love, but they can handle. Peppers, I'm definitely waiting on until those nighttime temperatures are in the 50s. It also helps me to not plant everything out in one day and do it a little bits at a time. In this first row, I'm going to be planting some of our tomatoes. I'm going to do beefsteak, Amish paste, and Cherokee purple. I've never done the Cherokee purple before, so this is our first year doing it. The Amish paste is for some of our canning that we're going to do this year. Last year we did San Marzano. I am going to do that again in a different bed, but I wanted to do the Amish paste as well this year. And then we did the beefsteak last year and we liked it, so I'm doing that again this year for some slicers. Just for sandwiches and salads. And I'm going to be planting these tomatoes 16 inches apart. Also, before I plant anything, I'm going to be spacing it out first just to make sure I have everything where I want it before I start digging. Because tomatoes you want to plant deep so that the root system can get a good support underground, and so I don't want to have to go through and figure out I spaced them incorrectly and have to go back and redo my work. Planting my tomatoes, I'm trying to plant them as close to these first set of leaves as I can. So I'll dig really deep and then put it far in, because all these little hairs that you see are potential roots. So when I'm planting, I'll take this out of the pot, and then I might even take off this and maybe even this. I'd probably leave that one. So I might take off this and try to plant this high. That way all of this will establish really deep roots. And that's why I plant them deep. And then when I'm doing that, I'm also trying to make sure I'm not leaving like a pool of water in the soil. So I'm gonna add some soil to this one to make kind of a mound. That way the water comes down and it doesn't just sit at the base of the tomatoes. That way, because tomatoes don't really like wet feet. I want the water, I want it to be watered, but then I don't want the water just to sit there at the base, because that could cause disease. Okay, so this is one of my Amish paste tomatoes, and before I plant it, I'm just gonna prune here, and I'm just going to take this off, and this one too. And if they were bigger and thicker, I would just use pruners. That way I'm not leaving like an open wound on the plant so that disease could come in. When I plant this, I'm going to try to go up this high to this first branch. I did end up planting that Amish paste tomato plant high enough so that I have like a mound, and then I have it going up to about that first stem. But these leaves, I don't like how long they are, because it's just gonna be a perfect breeding ground for disease, because it's touching the ground, it's touching the mulch. So I'm gonna go ahead and even take off these too, just so that honestly all of these tomato plants eventually will be pruned as it grows. I'll be taking off the bottom leaves anyway until it hits the cattle panel. So this one, because it is attached to the arch, it's lower. Eventually these tomatoes, as it grows, I'll prune the bottom leaves so that way from here down, there won't be any leaves. I'm just gonna start doing that here. As I'm going through and planting these tomatoes, some of them are large enough that I can already start using the trellis. The trellis is a little lower in some places anyway, and some of the plants are already large enough. So this is all of my tomatoes this year are indeterminate. There's determinate tomatoes and indeterminate tomatoes. So determinate is a determined amount that it will produce for fruit. Indeterminate, it's an indeterminate amount that it will produce. So that's why those are the tomatoes that I'm pruning. I would not be pruning these if they were determinate, because I would be messing with that determined amount. I'll show you how I'm trellising this one. This is large enough and it needs some support, so I'm just gonna interweave it already so that it will start climbing up this trellis, and I'll just move these longer pieces on the cattle panel. And then as it continues to grow, I'll just weave it in and out all the way up the trellis. And these will continue to produce as high as I'll support them. So as high as your trellis goes until you prune it from the top which I'll do as we get to the end of the season. I'll do that like when we get close to our last frost. That way it can just focus on, okay, I'm not going to try to produce any more fruit. I'm just going to ripen the fruit that's already on the vine. As I've gone through and planted out this row, as I told you, I've been pruning off any lower branches, and then if I see any of these suckers, if I leave this here, it's going to keep growing another shoot. And so I actually want it to focus its energy on just this one main branch. And so I'm going to prune this off as well. Some of these I found them even up on higher. I found maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3. So I'm going to take this off as well. Again, it's just going to give it more airflow to prevent against disease like blight. And then it's also going to help to focus the plant on producing the roots and this one main stem rather than a bunch of energy, a bunch of different places. I want to be intentional about where it's sending its energy. And so I'm just going to prune this with my fingers. Thankfully, when you catch them this small, they're easy to do just by hand. But if I miss some and I catch them when they're larger, I'll use pruning shears. Okay, I realize I'm referencing a few tools that I'm using, and a year ago, I didn't even know what those were. So I'm gonna share that with you. I'm a visual learner, so it helps me to see as I'm learning something. So I mentioned a Hori Hori. This was my Christmas gift. I got it because it has measurements on it, which is helping me with my spacing, and then I also use it to dig. So it's like a 2-for-1. When I'm referencing the pruners, there's all sorts of different kinds of pruners. So far, of all the ones I've purchased, I've liked these the best. I feel like it's just a matter of finding the ones that fit your hands. I don't have small hands, but they're not particularly large either. So these just fit well. These are the ones that I prefer. I do have another pair that's blue. I don't know where it is, so get a couple sets of pruners so you know where at least one of them are. I've pruned these off of the first row of tomatoes that I planted, and then one of the reasons we keep our chicken coop next to the garden is for times like this where I can just throw it over the fence and feed the chickens. So the first row I ended up with 4 beefsteak, 5 Amish paste, and then 2 Cherokee purple. I actually have an extra beefsteak and a couple extra Amish paste that I'm gonna just hang on to either to give to a friend or if something happens to the ones that I put in the ground. So for this row, I'm gonna end up doing some German striped tomatoes for slicers, for sandwiches. I'm gonna do the paste tomato, which is our San Marzanos. And then at the end, I'm gonna do a cherry tomato. I have some yellow F1 hybrids. I tend to do more heirlooms, but I'm not opposed to doing hybrids. I just prefer the flavor of heirlooms. I like that I can save seed from the heirlooms, whereas the hybrids I can't. So I'm gonna go ahead and do those. I haven't done that cherry tomato variety before. I also ended up getting some champagne bubble cherry type tomatoes from a friend that I've heard if you don't like a tomato, you're gonna like these. So I wanna plant those. So depending on how much room I have, I might add at least one of those in here. If not, I'm gonna give it to the girls. All right, fast forward, we're 2 days later. The camera was full, so you didn't quite get to see me finish 2 days ago. All I did was, once I finished planting the tomatoes, I watered them in. So even though the rain was coming, I wasn't quite sure exactly when, can't predict the weather. So I just went around and I watered each plant for 10 seconds each, and then I went around again and did 15 seconds each, and then I did 20 seconds each so that it could absorb it before I came back around. I finished out the tomatoes that day, and then I added some flowers. So I just did some marigolds. We just had a couple. I think I'm actually gonna start some more today. The temperatures are getting warmer. I don't really necessarily need to start them inside and then harden them off before transplanting because it is getting warm enough. Some things I'm still choosing to start instead of direct sow because visually I'm still learning spacing and plants, and when I do the direct seed to germinate, they need water, and I just trust myself better with the bottom watering with seed starting inside, and I'll do it because my actual in-ground garden, I don't water that much because in Tennessee we get about an inch of rain every week at some point, so I will go sometimes multiple days without watering. Sometimes I won't water at all depending on how much rain, and with seed starting, I can't do that. And so until I get better at that. I will eventually direct sow some zinnias later and things like that, but it's still, we have a couple nights that are gonna be too cold. I did just put in some marigold and some borage and some lantana, and then Brian also had the camera yesterday while he was working on making our driveway, And so he's been cutting down some trees and turning them into mulch for our walkways. And so we've gotten 2 of those done. We're kind of doing multiple things at once. All right, so we got these 2 walkways done. Underneath the mulch is just a layer of landscape fabric because if you remember a couple days ago there was some grass here, so we just mowed the grass, put down the landscape fabric to help kind of keep the grass down, and then put the mulch for the walkway. And then next, with the next couple loads he does, we're gonna go ahead and do that for this entrance where you see the grass. I had started to mulch without it and I just couldn't get the mulch thick enough. You would need like 10 to 12 inches in order for the grass to not be coming up in between the mulch. I'm gonna go ahead and put down some landscape fabric here and then put the mulch on top of it. Last year we had done the landscape fabric and then I regretted it as far as planting and I thought I would never use it again, and then now I'm seeing how it did help with at least my walkways. So I don't know that I'll keep the landscape fabric forever, but at least for this first year when I'm trying to suppress the grass that was here and any weeds, I'm at least gonna lay that out and put our walkways on top of it, and then we'll see how that works and what I wanna do next year. I'm learning as I go, and some of the stuff that I'm learning, one minute I think I hate it, and the next minute I see the benefit, and so I'm trying to figure out how do I use it to my advantage. So we're gonna go ahead with landscape fabric to help with our walkways. I don't love it because of the plastic. I don't love it for planting. I don't love it for, it does nothing to help the soil, but I'm not planting in our walkways, so I'm not necessarily trying to build that soil. We're going with it now. We'll see how we like it, and we can always adjust if we decide to change our minds. I say we. I'm the one that changes my mind. Brian just kind of listens to my thoughts and helps to say go when I'm stalled. I also planted out some of this trailing nasturtium. I did it along this middle row, that way we can have it go up the trellis. Because some beans or cucumbers are going to be here, I left some space there so that those could also go up. And then I also planted out this beautiful lantana. I hadn't originally planned on doing lantana, but I was at one of the last Master Gardener classes that I have for the year, and there was a fun game that we had played and my team won, and I just thought those were so beautiful. We do plan on putting out some flowers and some foundation planting in front of our house, but that bed isn't quite ready yet, and I didn't want these guys to wait and end up dying because they didn't have a home. So they're gonna make the garden pretty, and then if I need to move them later, I will. This morning the girls also planted out some of their garden, just again some of their tomatoes and some flowers that'll do okay with the current temperatures. Maybe I'll have them do garden tours a little later. They still have their cucumbers to plant out and their peppers. They did that today too, so maybe they'll do their own garden tours in a couple weeks. And then the rest of today I'm just going to start those flowers that we're going to plant out when the temperatures are warmer, and then in a couple weeks I will, maybe even next week actually, I might go ahead and add in the cucumbers and peppers into our garden and the girls, and then I'll go ahead and video that and we'll put that up. It's helpful for me just to see, I didn't quite understand my first year, how do you layer things in? How do you plant them knowing what is still coming? And what do you plant first, what do you plant next, and what temperatures to pay attention to. So some of these I might have gotten wrong too, especially the flowers. This is the first year I'm focusing on flowers in addition to vegetable gardening. And so I might mess those up, but I can always pick up more at the nursery, start more inside if I have time, or just make note for next year.